Hey, everybody, it's Bill, and I'm here today to see what Scott thinks of the listening assignment that I gave to him. I had picked this record sort of arbitrarily. It was one of my favorites of the last year of the last century. Came out in 1999, and it was by a group which is essentially one guy with a kind of collection of people around him, Stephin Merritt, and it's called 69 Love Songs, which surprisingly enough contains actually 69 love songs. And I asked Scott, given the number of songs involved, if maybe he could take a look at the first 23 songs, essentially was the first CD in this album, and come back and let me know what he thought about it. As I said, I liked it a lot, but I hadn't really listened to it in quite a number of years. So I'm eager to get Scott's take on it. So Scott, what do you think?
Well, I did listen to the entire thing. I saw your assignment. You just asked me to listen to the first one. I thought, no, if I want to do this, I want to do this. It is not 69 love songs. It's about a half a dozen love songs and like 63 scraps and half-baked ideas. It's this seems to me, and we've talked about this before. You know what I think about these archive releases. This just has a feel and a sound and everything of an archive release, but it's not an archive release. I mean, the guy did this intentionally. It was like the stuff never went into the archive. It just went straight onto a CD, and it's like 3 CDs, 69 tracks, 23 tracks for CD. It just seems to me to be way overkill. And it's like I say, it's one of these guys. It's just a guy that calls himself a band, and I guess he has some regulars that come along with him. But essentially, what this is some guy just sitting around, fooling around in a studio, and just see what he can come up with. That's what it sounds like to me. And some of the stuff should have never seen the light of day, as far as I'm concerned. I know there's an audience for this because it was a successful record commercially. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a top 20 hit or anything like that, but it did have an audience, and the guy's been working for a while. So I guess there are people who enjoy the stuff. I'm just not one of them. I find it to be indulgent. I say there were about 6 tracks on here that I thought were pretty good, but having to go through 3 discs and 69 tracks to find them was a chore. But I was determined to do it.
Do you think that if you had stopped after the first 23, that it would have changed your mind at all?
Because I was getting annoyed during the first 23, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go through this whole thing. And I'll tell you, twice I made an attempt to go through the whole thing, start at the beginning to go through the whole thing, and both times I got to the second track on the second disc, which was. Let me find the name of this track here. Love is like jazz. Twice, by the time that thing came on, I said, enough. This I can't deal with this crap anymore. I turned it off. The third time I made an attempt, I said, you know what? I'm going to just jump over that little roadblock that I hit. And I started on the third time. I started with the track following that, When My Boy Walks Down the Street, and then finished it up from there. And honestly, I found more on the second and third CDs than I did on the first one. The first CD, the only thing on the first CD that made any sense to me was the Book of Love.
The Book of Love is long and boring. No one can lift the damn thing. It's full of charts and facts and figures and instructions for dancing.
And it turns out, I've I've known that song for years. This is a song that always would turn up. Has been turning up on my Pandora feed for years. I hear it, and I think probably at one point I liked the song enough. I think probably at one point that I said I want to look into this, and I went and found this album and started listening to it, and just said no, this isn't for me, and then just moved on and then forgot about it. And I didn't recognize it when you made the assignment to me. I thought I was going into this cold, but I had heard that. There are, I don't know. I find that there's probably a solid EP in here somewhere. I don't even know if there's enough here to put together a full album, but there's a solid half an album in here about, maybe, like I say, maybe a half a dozen decent tracks. And the rest of it just sounds to me like him noodling around. These aren't just 3 albums. These are 3 long albums. Each one of these things are like an hour long, so this is 3 hours of material. And like I say, it's just a lot of scraps. I didn't find anything particularly enjoyable about the guy's voice, about his songwriting. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like
it did not work for me. If you haven't figured that out yet, it didn't work for me.
it is definitely it's a record that or set of records that you have to be kind of a aficionado of chamber pop or whatever you would like to call it. I think Stephin Merritt's approach is sort of the he's kind of a craftsman, so he likes to work in genres. So all of these songs are in different genres, and they're all love songs per se, but they are, everything from gospel to punk to symphony, kind of pocket symphonies and all of this stuff. And it can be quite clever, but it can also be overwhelming, and the sheer volume of it can be daunting. And I give you a lot of credit for trying to go through it as many times as you did, because it's a lot. So I appreciate it. And next time, perhaps.
Let me. I mean, those you mentioned the different genres that he's dabbling in here. I mean, I'm a fan of most all those genres. I mean, I like the stuff. But the problem is here is that. I'll harken back to another one that we talked about recently, a recent Neil Young album that came out, and our criticism of it was that he's just into this mode where he's just throwing stuff out there, not working on it, just throwing stuff out there, recording it, bam, put it in a can, let's go, let's move on. And the problem is here is that none of these ideas or none of these things, except with the exception of about a half a dozen of them, they're just scraps of ideas, and then they weren't finished. It's like you said, oh, this sounds good, let's move on to the next one, let's move on to the next one, let's move on to the next one. And if he would have put in a little effort on some of these better ideas that he had, he might have come up with a decent album here. I'm not opposed to the genre that he's working in or anything like that. I just think it was just lazy and indulgent.
Got it. Okay, well, there you have it. 2 thumbs down from Scott, and the next one that I assigned to him will definitely have fewer songs. It's got to be, because it's pretty much impossible to have more. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and make sure you let us know what you think. Also, subscribe and stay tuned for more listening assignments.
But I love it when you sing to me, and you can sing me anything.
Now you got the right to sing the old man blues, and trade in your Playboy for some hush puppy shoes. One more time.